Hello and welcome everyone to another Starcraft 2 England stream. The game today is between Complexity's coLdrewbie and a player called ruxin. Now if we switch over to the game cam, we will see that we've got coLdrewbie spawning as the blue Terran player in the top left position, and we've got ruxin spawning as the red Zerg player up in the top right position. The map is of course Shakuris Plateau. It's one of my favourite maps to both watch games on and play games on. Purely because there's just so many things with the map you can use. I mean, first and foremost, there are these high ground positions here, which obviously if you're a Terran player or a Protoss player, you can use very, very effectively. Either stick Colossus up here or siege tanks, and it's very, very difficult for the Zerg player to deal with those. Similarly, there is this low ground here, which is great for blink stalkers, also drops, and I mean there's just a lot you can do to utilize this low ground here as Terran and Protoss, but it's not all good for Terran and Protoss. Obviously this natural base is relatively easily taken because there's quite a small ramp which is quite easy to defend here, but the third base really you have a lot of choice on. You can either take this third base, which is a bit out of position and closer to your opponent generally, but the advantage it does have is that it's physically closer than the other option for a third base, which is easier to defend but a lot weaker to drops. Now obviously the one advantage for a Zerg player here is getting these third and fourth base are quite natural. Even the fifth and sixth base can be very natural to take, so really good for Zerg players in that respect. Also quite good for Zerg players in ZVT because it's relatively easy to defend Hellions, because you can just do some Sim City around here, get the spine crawlers out, use the queens to really make a long run distance for the Hellions to get round and do any significant damage, and especially get into the main base. So we will see coLdrewbie just getting his barracks down, getting his gas down. Meanwhile a 15 hatch went down for ruxin, and he's also getting his gas first. Gas at 17 and a pool at 16, so a fairly standard build. We'll be going for Zergling speed, very easy, no super fast third or anything like that, and I can't blame him. It's a good build order getting 15, 17, 16 hatch gas pool, because you can just get that Zergling speed out very early. You can get double queens out the second the hatchery finishes, and everything just works nicely. Meanwhile, this Overlord has just had a quick scout around, knows exactly what's going on, has seen that there's one refinery out for coLdrewbie. Now one refinery almost definitely means reactor Hellions. I mean it's the go-to build, and there we go, the factory already going down. Reactor Hellions is obviously the go-to build in TvZ at the moment for the Terran player, because it just means that they have great map control, they prevent creep spread, they prevent any sort of greedy third, and they can do some damage as well. I mean if you get Hellions into your main base, you can lose a lot of drones. They are quite not difficult to defend, but very punishing if you make any mistakes while defending them. And there goes the reactors. So reactor Hellions are on the way. Speed on its way now for ruxin. Meanwhile he's got both queens on the way. Both are about half done. It'll be interesting to see whether he injects both hatcheries or goes for a creep spread just to join his bases up. And I mean if he wants to get that creep spread before the Hellions come out, which he's almost certainly expecting, he would need to start placing the creep tumors now. And obviously the more creep you get, the easier it is to deal with the Hellions. So just having a look around now, this Zergling is going to come in, valiantly sacrifice his own life, most probably just to scout what is happening for his master ruxin. The command center is on its way down for coLdrewbie, and he should have got that scout off. I believe he did. No, he didn't actually, so no scout off yet, but he knows of course the Marines are on that low ground, so he can probably deduce that it is more likely than not that coLdrewbie is going for a command center. Still, regardless, because he saw some units down there and didn't get a definite scout off, dropping that spine crawler just to be on the safe side. And obviously the spine crawler will prevent these Hellions from getting in at least these numbers, but two more are on the way, so we're going to see 4 Hellions, which really is the sort of magic number in order to do significant damage to mineral lines, etc. Only 3 Zerglings out at the moment, and there should be a second queen. ruxin definitely built 2 queens. There it is. I am being completely blind. He's just got this queen forward in order to deal with the Hellions, and I apologise for that. It was a complete missing something directly under your nose. And 2 Hellions are down now. 2 more Hellions are out. 2 more on the way, so there's going to be 6 Hellions in play. And ruxin just getting his second and third gas, fourth gas as well now. Meanwhile, coLdrewbie just on 2 gases. getting a second factory with a tech lab, so he's going to be getting those tanks out fairly quickly in order to get up a good defensive line. Obviously, Drewbie does have his natural base down as well now, so ruxin is on equal bases with Drewbie, and never a position you really want to be in as a Zerg player. But obviously, this is the key to these Hellions. He can't afford to take that third base, or while there are Hellions there. Now, what a lot of players do in this situation, where they are being confined to 2 bases because of Hellions, they just throw down a macro hatch. And it works very well because it increases your production. And there we go, actually, ruxin going for the macro hatch now, as I say. And now, this macro hatch serves 2 purposes. One, it gives you extra production, which is obviously fantastic. But secondly, it just allows walling off to be a lot simpler from these Hellions. So there are 6 Hellions here now, but there's quite a few Zerglings, a queen down here, a third queen also on the way. So if these Hellions do move in, one queen will probably move to there just to block off there. And then the Hellions would have to come through here and would be in a lot of danger of getting surrounded. But some Marines are moving in now as well. Siege mode about 3/4 of the way done. And that siege tank is coming over. So Drewbie's going to be putting on heavy pressure here. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Lair has finished now just for ruxin. He is getting his Spire out as well as a Baning Nest and an Evolution Chamber. And now these Marines and Hellions are going to just be skirting around the bottom of ruxin's base. Meanwhile, the tanks are moving in very slowly. A third base coming out now for Drewbie. I like this. He's going to actually get a base ahead, which is exactly where he wants to be. It'll put him in a very advantageous position. Meanwhile, we have got this tank sieging up, and I mean, that Spine Crawler has amazing range. These queens are just out of range of the tank, and that's really why Drewbie has left this tank back here. Those Hellions poking up just to give vision and unbowing the spine at possibly the worst possible time. Some hits going off. Those Zerglings are lining up. A tank hit does manage to go off, and another tank hit on that Spine Crawler. Great transfuse there by ruxin, just keeping that up. I mean, if you did lose that Spine Crawler, you'd be in a lot of trouble. But second tank here now, 10 Mutalisks on the way. So 10 Mutalisks will be able to deal with those 7 Marines very easily. So, I mean, once those Marines go down, both tanks will die, and possibly some Hellions will get picked off. And again, ruxin just unburrowing that spine, and that's not really what you want to be doing in this situation. But the Mutalisks have just popped, so a lot of those Hellions are going to go down in a great kind of wraparound by the Lings. More Zerglings coming in. They will block those Hellions. All the Hellions will die. Meanwhile, those Marines just pulling the hell back. They don't want to get killed. But unfortunately, the tanks can't run away. So straight away, Drewbie takes quite a bit of losses there. And I mean, if we look at the units lost tab, 475 resources lost for ruxin compared to 1,250 for Drewbie. So that didn't actually come off particularly well for Drewbie. Now, ruxin just cleaning up those Hellions. He's getting back complete map control with those Mutalisks, getting his third base. But the third base is down for Drewbie, and actually now morphing into a Planetary Forces Fortress, getting loads of missile turrets. I mean, ruxin I don't actually think can do... There's no missile turrets around the natural, but obviously a lot of Marines. And 2 missile turrets, 3 missile turrets in the main base for Drewbie now. So Drewbie is pretty much defended from those Mutalisks, so it will be interesting to see whether ruxin goes for it, but I don't think he'll be able to, just purely because there's so many things there. Although, and a Thor as well, so if that Thor gets a good hit off like there, oh, those Mutalisks clumped up, quite a big hit went off, not too much splash damage actually, as it turns out, but +1 air attack is about half done now for ruxin. Meanwhile, +1 melee attack and +1 carapace just started as well now, so getting double upgrades there. Baning speed also on its way now. I'm surprised that ruxin actually went for the +1 melee attack before the carapace, purely because, as I say in pretty much every ZVT game I cast, every armor upgrade above you are, so if you've got one more armor upgrade to Terran weapon attack, your Zerglings and Banings will take 2 hits from tanks rather than 1. And that makes them twice as good. Well, not literally, but basically. But +1 weapons are actually on the way now for Drewbie there. So, I mean, carapace and +1 weapons will finish pretty equally. So, that'll really do a lot to nullify the effect. So, the 4th base is now down for ruxin as well. Meanwhile, this 3rd base and 5th and 6th gas for Drewbie are just coming down. These Mutalisks kind of poking around. They should be able to snipe off those 3 Marines. So, just taking what they can get, but they haven't actually been able to do much significant damage, and that Thor just poking forward, but the Mutalisks have been pulled back again. Meanwhile, +1 melee attack is just finishing as we speak for ruxin. The starport is on its way for Drewbie, along with getting 2 tanks at a time, quite a lot of Marines. Stim is about 3/4 of the way done. So is +1 for both vehicles and infantry attacks. So both players doing great upgrades. +2 air attack now just started for ruxin as well. If we take a look, 30 Zerglings are just popping now. So ruxin really just going for this mass army play as we speak. Just trying to pick off these rocks. And he is actually going for the hatchery here. So going to get that 5th base up super fast. And getting in the very south position, it's somewhere not often assumed to be getting the 5th base. The 5th base usually being favoured here. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. ruxin just checking here, scouting around, seeing what's going on. Obviously not going to see much. 5 more Mutalisks are on the way, +2 melee attack has now started, and those Mutalisks are just going to go for it. And that Thor is out of position. The Thor is going to move forward, does get 1 hit off. The Mutalisks weren't too badly clumped, so shouldn't do massive damage. And just replacing that turret with 2. It's like those companies who use paper or any sort of wood product, and they run those green campaigns for for every one we chop down, we'll plant 2 or whatever. And that's really Drewbie's approach to missile turrets. It's a surefire way to make sure eventually you will have enough missile turrets. So interesting to see what is happening here. A Nidus network actually on its way down now for ruxin, and this is pretty good. Now someone is pinging. I don't think there's any observers in this game. No, there's not. So it was ruxin pinging for some reason. So I guess he just wants to inform himself that this is where he wants to be looking. Now that's always good. I mean, you sound like an idiot when you do it, but if you talk to yourself while you're playing StarCraft 2, I always find that actually helps me. Now, this 4th base is actually coming down now for Drewbie. It will probably get scouted by these Mutalisks, so a cancel will be forced, although there's an awful lot of Mutalisks, so Drewbie will have to be quick. And, I mean, he does manage to just get that cancel off just in time, and it'll be interesting to see whether he goes for it. He is just going to go for it here. ruxin is going to try and do as much damage as he can. 2 missile turrets already down, 3 are going to go down as well. This 4th one is going to go down, but obviously the Thor is coming into position there, and Drewbie just replacing those. Only 1 for 1 now, so obviously his Greenpeace campaign of 2 missile turrets for every 1 has now expired. He did his bit for Shakura's Plateau and is now happy to just get 1 for 1. But a second Nidus network now going down, so we could see a dual prong attack, and ruxin is just loading it up, just literally just filling up those Nidus networks. Looks like he's just preparing, and 2 Nidus worms actually going down, going for a double Nidus worm here, using the Overlord to scout. Beautifully done. Those Mutalisks are coming out, which will actually mean those Nidus worms probably will get up very easily. Everything appears to have loaded up into the Nidus network now, and he's just coming out. Here comes the Banelings. Lots of Banelings are on the way. Obviously he doesn't want to use Banelings to kill a Thor, it'd be very cost inefficient, but Drewbie, mate, there are a lot of units in your base. Obviously, his army was there protecting the front, and huge Baneling hits going off for ruxin there. Drewbie's taking massive losses here, getting quite way behind. The tanks aren't sieged up. Meanwhile, he's had to keep some tanks down here just in case it's a 2-pronged attack, but everything is just in those Nidus networks, and the tank's still not sieged, so I mean, those Zerglings are just wreaking havoc on the mineral line. Meanwhile, the Mutalisks have taken down the turrets, they've taken down the orbital command, they've killed every SCV there, or at least those which weren't transferred. And I mean, this is just, ruxin is going to town on Drewbie right now. All of his production facilities are dying. Has put those Zerglings on hold command just to make sure he deals with the SCVs, which have moved out now. But it looks like ruxin is just controlling these Mutalisks, trying to take off all the add-ons, and that's really effective. Going to try and snipe down those engineering bays, and if he does manage to get them, that will delay the upgrades for Drewbie quite heavily. But there's just a lot of Marines there now, and a Thor. A Thor hit does go off, so the engineering bay will stay up, as will the armory, so the upgrades will finish. The infestation pit about 3/4 of the way done now for ruxin, so Hive Tech should be out soon. Now, those 2 Nidus networks still out, and those Mutalisks taking huge damage from the Thor. Not good control at all by ruxin there. I mean, he's lost a lot of stuff there. He's also lost a base down here. There was a drop going on during that. Pulled back quite a few Mutalisks to deal with it, but did actually lose his 4th base, and the 5th base will now get scouted as well, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Drewbie go and take out that 5th base, or at least attempt to. But there's about 40 supply deficit for Drewbie at this stage, and he is trying to get his 4th base up again. It has finished morphing that orbital command, and 2 Marines are going to go in, obviously stimming up. 2 Marines, 1 medevac. They should be able to do quite a lot of damage to the drone count, but the drone's just being pulled out, and in a slight overreaction, ruxin pulls his entire army. Now, not a good position for those Marines. They're going to die, but they try their best. But unfortunately, if it's a case of life and death, trying your best just doesn't cut it. You have to win or you're dead. So, Drewbie now has got quite a large army. He's actually pulling this back quite successfully. And workers killed. Very similar numbers of workers killed on both sides. Both players not really fully saturated anyway. I mean, obviously ruxin has got more bases currently, rebuilding his 4th base, and there's just so many units running in here. I mean, the tanks are spread out amazingly. Siege was done. Great marine spreading going on. I mean, just stimming them, trying to spread out those marines as best he can. But it's about one baning for every marine, so this splitting really isn't going to help Drewbie too much, and there's not much he can do here. He's down to 65 supply, and there is the GG. So some very creative play from ruxin there. Just getting those Nidus networks down and really showing Drewbie that you've got to remember to just place a supply depot at every single edge of your base, because there is nothing worse than having an entire army waltz straight past your beautifully defended front in order to come and kill you. So both players played amazingly well. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to keep up to date with me latest, I will keep my Twitter feed up to date. And really, I want to use it to interact with all the viewers, just to get opinions on games you want cast, feedback, etc. That is at SC2_England. I'm going to try and get one more game cast. I'm going to start some uploading as well. So hopefully there should be a steady stream of games over the weekend and coming into the start of next week. And I'll also be getting my new mic soon. And I can't wait for that, because then the sound quality will improve tremendously. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.